Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and here with me is Matthew López from Red, White, and Royal Blue. This story began as a successful novel, obviously. What was it to you about the book that really cried out to you and needed to be this movie?
It was very generally, it was the wonderfulness of the novel, and then it was really more specifically these characters, especially Alex and Henry, and then very, very specifically for me, it was Alex as a character. I had never read a book with a queer Latinx character in the lead that was so complexly yet also positively drawn. He was such a I knew that if I had seen him in a movie growing up, that would have really changed the way I thought about myself. And I wanted to make sure that other young Latina audience members, kids growing up watching, had that chance.
Yeah, and I think it's a romance film, and I don't think it works without the chemistry between the two main characters. It has to be really palpable, and your leads certainly have it. How do you even begin to look for that during the casting process?
I mean, honestly, the casting process, we spent months looking for these two actors, and we saw a lot of really wonderful people for it. And you really you had to sort of cast to the chemistry, and we had some really wonderful choices. I was very sort of glad in the choices that we had, but individually Nick and Taylor were both so wonderful, and but we tried all these different combinations and we put the two of them together and it was just instant. I mean, it was like plugging a light into a socket, plugging a lamp into a socket. It just was there, and it was there. I mean, the funny thing is it was there instantaneously from the hellos before they even started doing the scene. So it was pretty we just created the opportunity to have luck, which was we saw a lot of people.
And I think, the physical relationship they have is a huge part of the book. It becomes obviously a huge component of the movie. And it's just, I think like a lot of the sex scenes are depicted in a way, like especially the Paris scene, in this very vulnerable, honest way that you don't really see a lot on screen, frankly. So how did you handle those kind of super intimate moments?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that because of the way the book was written, I was being given the challenge by Casey McQuiston, the book's author, to make something that was also incredibly sexy and that in which the sex was part of the plot development. That actually we used that scene in Paris to really, truly sort of blossom their romance and bring them very close together physically and emotionally. We talked a lot about the journey that these two characters take with each other sexually and how each encounter throughout the film sort of brings them even more, makes them even more vulnerable with each other, and just sort of creates that attachment that you need in these two characters. And like I was blessed with two actors who were really, really respectful of the process and really cared very much about their characters. I had an amazing intimacy coordinator, and the four of us, we talked a lot about what that scene in Paris needed to be for the story and how we could best pull that off in a way that was both appropriate to the story, getting what we needed for story, and then also making sure that these were things that these two actors felt comfortable doing. I think part of the vulnerability in that is that the two of them really relied on each other so much throughout the making of the film, and in that scene, shooting that scene that day, they really, really needed each other. And so what you see on screen as sort of these two characters falling in love and really having this connection, I think a large part of that was due to the fact that on set, these two actors were doing something that was very, can be potentially uncomfortable and can certainly be very vulnerable making. And they knew that they needed each other. And so the eyeball to eyeball connection between them in that scene was real.
Yeah, I think it takes it to something where, um, you think of this story and it's a steamy romantic comedy, but it takes it to a very deeper emotional level as well. Is that a difficult, like, tonal shift for you in the making of this?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the tone of it. Throughout much of the film, I really wanted the tone of it to feel like a 1930s screwball comedy. I was looking at a lot of Howard Hawks. I was looking at a lot of press and Sturgis, and I was encouraging the actors to watch those movies and to sort of to come to set prepared to do something in that style. However, I think one of the things that was so true about the book and so successful about the book is that Casey never really flinched at allowing it to you to feel things. And it is the movie is a comedy for sure, but I think that we all sort of understood that it also needed to operate as a drama. And it was primarily a comedy that stopped being a comedy every now and again in order to deliver the drama. So that tonal shift that we tried to pull off in the Paris scene, it was one of the few sort of through the looking glass moments that we had in the film, that we were telling the audience that still going to be a comedy, still going to have a lot of fun at this movie, but these feel like high stakes endeavors. And so, yeah, tone for us was such a big thing, and we spent a lot of time discussing it and then really keeping honest with ourselves on set.
One of my other favorite moments is courtesy of President Uma Thurman, which is great casting as a president, because she has this heart-to-heart with her son, which is kind of like what I feel like most gay people would dream of when they think of an accepting parental moment like that. Can you talk about crafting that moment with her?
Yeah, actually, Casey and I were talking about that scene recently, because in the book, it's really played for laughs. The book is very, very comedy forward, and again, I knew that when I was working on the script, I needed to sort of soften the comedy there, and I needed to deliver a really human moment between these two characters. Like in the book, she's like, all right, come back. And she's like in a couple of hours and she's made a PowerPoint presentation and she's like, explain this to him. And I was like, that's not going to really work in the film. We need to A, just keep moving, but B, tonally, we need to see this mother actually see that her son is desperately in need of some care and some attention and some love. So when I was writing the scene, then especially when I got on set with Uma and Taylor, I basically was like, look, this is an opportunity to sort of like be the greatest mom ever. And Uma has 3 kids, so she's done, she's had a lot of parental experience, far more than I have. But I think what she saw in the scene and what we really had a lot of success pulling out of her in it is a woman who never expected to have this conversation with her son, but who as virtue of being like a really kick-ass president, knows exactly what to say in this moment. She's probably far more educated on sort of gay sexual health than even her son is, and as this progressive, Democratic president. And I think, watching the scene, a lot of people tell me that it's sort of like, not only is she sort of like the mom that everybody wishes that they had, but like she's the president that everybody wishes that we had. We had a lot of fun doing that scene, and a lot of it, I think, for me and for those of us working on the film, is a lot of wish fulfillment in that scene. Boy, wouldn't it be great if that's how that played out in homes across the world, and certainly wouldn't it be great if every U.S. president knew off the top of their heads what that got to get their son on Truvada. It's a pretty, so yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of my favorite days of shooting, and especially with Uma.
This is your directorial debut. You have plenty of credits as a writer, but what was there like a skill set from writing that you thought directly applied here that really helped you?
No.
All
No,
new.
no, not of it. It's a totally different skill set. I think that I was blessed to have Stephen Daldry as a kind of directing mentor, unofficial directing mentor for me when we did The Inheritance together, which was basically me spending 3 years watching Stephen direct and understanding what a good director looks like. So I do think that the overlap between observing Stephen direct a play of mine and then taking those skills onto set, very much, that was always in my mind. It was always, what would Stephen do? I was also reading the Mark Harris's Mike Nichols biography while we were making the movie. So I had these like Stephen Daldry, Mike Nichols in my head as I was making it. But yeah, no, I wish I could say that it was just the easiest transition, but it's an entirely different skill set. I think the thing that is undeniable is that storytelling is storytelling is storytelling. Story is the same. It works in a different tempo on film for sure, but the things that I learned as a storyteller on the stage absolutely applied to my work as a director. Everything else, how it was totally new to me, and I learned on the job.
Well, it was a great time to learn on the job, and the end result was wonderful. So thank you, Michael, Matthew, so much for sitting with
Thank
me.